Hi guys, my name is Sean. I am presenting on the topic on the kernel and its architecture, programming, drivers and its impact on the computer system. Think about kernel as a center brain of the computer, like the heart of the computer. Today we will explain or learn about what the kernel is and its works and what its different types are and why it is so important for making your computer run well. Then move to the introduction. The kernel is the most important part of OS. It manages the whole computer. It acts as a bridge between software and hardware. Since the program cannot directly talk to hardware, the kernel handles it safely. The kernel does several key jobs. It manages resources like CPU, memory. It handles processors and memory so program can run correctly. It control devices like your keyboard and mouse using drivers, and it provides security to keep the computer stable and protected. Then move to why the kernel is so important. The kernel is important because it allows all your program to run the hardware. Without it, the software cannot run. It manages multitasking, letting you run many programs at the same time without them fighting over the resources. It is also manages memory, make sure every program gets the space it needs. The kernel handles security by checking the permissions, and it controls all the device drivers, and overall the kernel keeps your system running fast and stable and prevent from crashes. Then move to the types of kernel. There are many types of kernel: the monolithic kernel, microkernel, hybrid kernel, exokernel. The monolithic kernel, it put almost all OS services in the kernel space, so it is very fast but hard to change. In microkernel, it keeps most efficient services in kernel space, and others are put in the user space. That makes it safer and easy to update, but sometimes slower. Then and the hybrid kernel, it is a combination of monolithic and microkernel. It takes the best part of both, offering a good balance of speed and simple maintenance. And then exokernel is the minimal kernel that gives the application direct control over the hardware. It is mainly used for research and experiment systems. The kernel architecture and components. The kernel is built several working parts. The process management controls every program start, stop, and how they share the CPU using the rules like scheduling, like round robin, FCFS, like that. Then memory management. Memory management handles both the real memory and virtual memory. Then the device management, it lets the kernel uses hardware by taking to the device drivers. Next, file system management, that organizes how the data are stored and they are accessed on the hardware. Finally, security separates the special kernel mode from the regular user mode. What are the difference between the kernel and user mode? The computer runs codes in many two ways. The kernel mode is special powerful mode. The system has full and direct access to your CPU and all of the hardware. If something goes wrong here, the entire system might crash. In the user mode, the normal mode where the application run, the program has limited access and cannot touch the hardware directly. If a program crashes in user mode, only the program stops and the rest of computer stay fine. This is the key for stability. Then system code. The program cannot access the hardware directly. So they use system code to ask the kernel for help. Then the system code are official the safe way for program to talk to the core part of OS. For example, the program uses a system call like fork to create new process, or open function when it is want to open a file, and like system call like in the read and write. We can read or write a file when it need to move the data. Okay, the system call make sure the kernel approaches every important action. Then move to the kernel programming. The kernel programming means writing code that runs in the kernel powerful space, okay, requiring deep knowledge, and this is done to create device drivers and kernel modules. Then modules are the small pieces of code you can add or remove from the kernel while the computer is running without need to restart. It is great for adding new features or supporting new hardware like a new printer device. And then move to device drivers. Device drivers is simply a piece of software that tells the operating system how to talk to specific piece of hardware. There are different drivers for different devices, like character drivers for keyboard or network drivers for Wi-Fi. Then drivers has big job. They set up the hardware, move the data back and forth, and report any error to the kernel. And then the impact of kernel in the computer system. The kernel has a huge impact on your system. It directly controls the performance by managing CPU memory very well. It improves reliability by finding errors and prevent crashes. It ensures security through access control. It also helps the multitasking and make sure all your hardware is used correctly. The kernel is the reason your computer is fast, safe, and work reliably. And then developing a device driver follows a defined sequence of steps. The process begins with the initializing function, which is executed to detect and prepare the device for use. Following preparation, the device must have formally registered with the operating system, so the kernel is aware of its presence and capability. The driver programmer then defines the file operation structure, which implements the specific function such as read, write, and control operations that application will request. Then the drivers then take the responsibility for handling all input-output operation and expertly manage the hardware interrupt to respond quickly to the device's need. Okay. Finally, the device must be properly unregistered during a clean driver. To summarize the core points, the kernel is truly the heart of the OS. Then it manages the resources. It is a central authenticate that essentially manage the fundamental resources, including as process management, memory. To sum up, the kernel is the core brain of the operating system, the heart of the operating system. It manages everything: the processors, memory, devices, files. The system call are how the application safely talk to the kernel. The drivers and modules let us add new features, and overall the kernel is what make your computer good performance, security, stability. Thank you.